provide you two main types of loops, for loops and while loops. Let's quickly finish this now here. So loops are actually used to execute a block of code which is repeatedly long long as a condition is true or for a specific number of iteration. Iteration means again repetition only. So you
Mhm.
can write down that Python actually provides you two main types of loops. The first one is for loops and while loops. So starting with the for loops here. For loop basically you can write down that for loop in Python is used for iterating over a sequence, like you can say a list. Now what is this? These are all mostly data structures or usual variables or data types, you can say them. All of them that I'm writing as an example here. You can say data types is a better word to be used here, not structures. And it actually repeats the block of code for each element in the sequence. Now syntax, how does that really work? Syntax for loop is what? So syntax says that you can write down for variables in sequence. Now this is the syntax. Obviously, this is not what you write down in the real code, and then you actually put up the for variable means variable name actually. And here the name of the sequence you have to write down, and then make sure you put up the colons also. Otherwise, it will show you error. And then you can just execute your code. You can write down here code to execute for each element, and then you move further. Now example can be, let's say we will put up the iteration iterating over a list. If you have to iterate over a list means that you don't want to print the whole list one by one, but by using loop you just want to print the whole list together. So that is what here it is, iterating over a list. And here you can just write down fruits, which is basically equals to square brackets here. And inside that you can choose apple, any specific list you can create. This is the most common fruit list we can create here. Write down cherry here, or also put up any other thing in case if it is required, like more such names of fruits. Then you can use for loop here now. You can write down for fruit in fruits. Means this is again the variable here which I have used, and then this is the sequence, means this is the list name. Now it can be I also, you can use any other word also in this. But because fruit is, this is the fruit, and these are the these are in the variable called fruits. sequence called fruits, list called fruits. That's why we use that. And then definitely put up a colon according to the syntax, and then just print here fruit. Now, when you do so, it will get printed. Let me show you how. If I'll just remove the code above to show you, I need to remove this code. Okay, you can run it. Basically, it will give you, when you will run this, it will give you apple, banana, and cherry together when you print this down. Why? Because again, you have used for loop, which is basically a kind of a circulation of loops. So what will it do is that it will go over and over, like it will go over and over the same thing to print that again, come print it till the time all the elements has been printed, like these ones. So it goes on and print the thing over. That is what loops do here in one go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, in coding language, we call it iterate. So loop iterate over each item in the fruits. Fruits means this variable, this list actually, and prints it, and the fruit variable takes the value for each item in the list on each iteration. Means every time it comes on the list, it takes the value one, then second, then third, like that. And it starts from zero though, so zero, one, and two. That's how it works. And then we can have the range.
Mm-hmm.
So now if we proceed now with the range, let's say this is the range here. So you have range with for loop. Now in range with for loop means the range function basically, the range functions like this. It basically generates uh, so it basically generates a sequence of numbers, and it is commonly used to control how many times the loop will run, such as for I in range, print I means integer. So this will iterate from 0 to 4. So this will iterate from 0 to 4 like that. So this loop, what will it do it? It will run 5 times, printing the number from 0 to 4. And because we have used the range function, like this thing is called range function, range and bracket is called range function. It starts from 0 and goes up to the given number. But yeah, that's one thing you have to write down. And then if I'll take the example of it, you can take like for I in range, for I in range here, and then you can choose here 2 comma 10 comma 2. And next is you can print this up, print I. Explanation is simple that the loop basically will print numbers 2, 4, 6, and 8, and the third argument in range function specifies the step size also. So I'll write down that also here. The loop print numbers 2 comma 4 comma 6 and 8 also. And the third argument in range specifies the step, the step size. Then you have the next topic, which is basically while loop. Now, what is the while loop here? You can write down about the while loop, that the while loop runs as long as your given condition is true. Or you can write down TRUE. Now, in this, it is generally used when the number of iteration is not fixed, but depends on a condition. So that condition will be, if you write down while condition colon hashtag code to execute as long as condition is true. Example can be, if you put up I equals to 1 and you will put up the word called while here, where you have I is less than equals to 5, let's say, then we can print I here. And I will be plus equals to 1, means keep on incrementing. This means keep on adding 1 after every loop, after printing every number. This is called incrementing 1 here. So if I'll explain you here what happened, it is that this loop prints numbers from 1 to 5 and it continues. It continues as long as I is less than or equal to 5, and with each iteration I is incremented by 1.
Mm.
This is called while loop thing. And then you also have the next thing, which is called loop control statement. So basically in here Python provides control statements to change the flow of loops, such as break, which usually we write down in small letters. This basically like exits the loop completely. And second is continue. This basically skips the rest of the code in the current iteration. Current iteration means repetition and actually moves to the next iteration. And then you have else that can be used with loops to run a block of code once the loop finishes normally. So example for break statement can be for, I'll write down here. Example for break, you can write down for I in range function. Let's say number 10, we will take this time colon again as the say like syntax says. Then if I is equals to 5, then again colon break here and print I. Now what does that mean here? This break exit the loop when I is 5 here. This exit the loop when I is 5. Then you can also write down for again. So in this case, the loop stops when I reaches 5. So the loop stops I reaches 5. So prints number from 0 to 4. And then we can have continue. Example for continue. For continue statement. For that to be done, you have to start with for I in range. Similar function. Put up the number, put up the colon. Write down if your I is equals to 3, then continue. Here you will just write down that print your I. And there, in this case, make sure to skip the rest of the code. Okay, that is not really required. You can just write down this. Now let me explain you what happened in here as well. So when I is 3, the continue statement skips the print I for that iteration. So it basically prints 0 comma 1 comma 2 comma 4. And this is the example for example for else statements with loops. So you can start with again for I in range. Make sure to print I here. And then we just do the else statement here. Make sure the else is below the for and print the statement loop finished maybe. Now this is the else block here, and it runs after the loop finishes. It only executes if the loop was not interrupted by a break state. Then you have nested loop. So basically a loop inside another loop is actually called your nested loop, and each of the iteration of your outer loop triggers complete set of iterations in the inner loop. For example, for I in range, for j in range, just print your. Now we can use the f string function, and to print the f string function, this is the outer loop here. This is the outer loop, and this one is the inner loop.
Mm.
To print the function, like to print the f string, you always write down f and put up this quotation mark, and then you can just write